I don't think there's a nutraceutical brand that is growing that doesn't have some type of digital embellishments that are on it. Then you can get into other areas, whether it's cosmetics or candle business. Uh, Cannabis is another big one that's
Cannabis
all
is
about,
huge.
that
Yep.
that kind of shelf appeal or that visual presence.
What's up, everyone? It's Eric Vessels with Taktiful. Welcome back to another episode of Taktiful Tuesdays. This is episode 53, and today I'm really excited to welcome Ed Wiegand, President and CEO of JetFX Inc. Ed has spent decades in the packaging and print industry working with major brands, helping push digital embellishment forward across labels, packaging, print enhancements. At JetFX, Ed and his team are focused on helping printers and converters add value, margin, and visual impact through UV inkjet-based embellishment technology. And this is a perfect conversation for us because we're going to talk about digital embellishment, not just as something that makes print look beautiful, but as a real business strategy, one that can create differentiation, improve profitability, reduce waste, and help printers move beyond commodity print. Ed, welcome to Tactful Tuesdays.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks for being here.
Hey, I've been seeing your name around. I know we're going to talk about some stuff been working on in the background as well with some of the cam guys, and I've been wanting to have you on the show for a while. So glad to finally get here. We always start with a little bit of background. Ed, you've been in this space for a really long time. How did your experience with labels, packaging, and other brands shape the way you think about digital embellishment today?
Well, I'll try to keep my background brief, but I came from the label side. So I've been in the industry. This will be my 39th year, and I fell into the industry. Went to school for mechanical engineering, thought I was going to be in automotive design. Last year in school, went out to a bar one night, ran into a friend from grade school, and they're like, "Hey, do you do CAD work?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then remember, this is 39 years ago, so AutoCAD was in its early days.
Yeah,
And like,
yeah.
yeah, my brother is an engineer and needs somebody to do some part-time work. I'm like, okay, great. I showed up here. It was the company was named Sobar, but it was a division of Avery. Avery before Avery
Mm,
and even existed. So I
yeah.
was working there kind of part-time as an intern, and when I graduated, fell right into it. And here I am 39 years later. I stayed on the print side, and we worked for a few different big label companies, and one in particular for 17 years. That company did analog printing, but was one of the world best at combination printing. So I had printing presses that were rotogravure, web offset, UV flexo, rotary screen, hot stamping, cold foil, all in single production lines.
Wow.
So when we invested in digital, which was in 2008, the company I was with, it was kind of the inspiration for me because we looked at inkjet, we looked at Zycon, we looked at HP Indigo, which is who we eventually went with because we believed that they had at the time for us, since we were already web offset printing, Indigo's digital offset printing. We invested in Indigo, but I questioned at the time, why isn't there combination printing in digital as there is in analog printing? Why can't the two systems be combined together to give the best of everything?
Right.
So that's how
That's
the
how you
inception
stumble.
came to me.
That's how you stumbled into it. So I think it's super interesting, and I'm just going to interject this because this is how I roll on these podcasts. I also started my career in the automotive industry, believe it or not. I was in the paint side of the auto industry for years, and I also had someone I went to school with that kind of got me into print. The original founder of What They Think, my college roommate, Randy Davidson, is how I got into this whole mess. So it's kind of funny. I love listening to the origin stories. And a lot of times they're just like, yeah, I didn't really mean to wind up in print. That seems
Yeah,
to be
just
a
completely
common
fall
theme.
into it.
Yeah, but also the common theme that you end up with is people that have been in print and stumbled into it end up loving it, end up loving the people, and the industry is just so really tight. So interesting to hear that, but it's a great segue. I think you gave me the segue. I was wanting to also hear the JetFX origin story and what was the problem that you saw in the marketplace that sort of led to JetFX?
So back in the mid 2000s, when we had invested in Indigo, fast forward, the company I was with, the owner was coming upon retirement and selling to one of the big multinationals in the label and print industry, a CCL. And I my career kind of started at the big multinationals and went to more and more entrepreneurial companies. And I thought, well, this is the time. This is the time to bring digital embellishments to, full level production. The Scodexes of the world, MGIs in the sheet fed world had made its mark, created the demand for digital embellishments. And I thought that JetFX could bring in the web space same solution, if not even more of a production environment solution.
Right on. And so we also promoting via this podcast, I guess, a Tactisphere live event. And for those who don't know about the Tactisphere, most of them do. It's our tactful community that we've launched, really vibrant, really high energy. It's all the digital embellishment geeks are sort of in there doing it. But we're going to be having an event coming up soon called Profit is the New Green, how digital embellishment can change the game. And that idea feels really connected to this conversation. And by the way, that is coming up on Thursday, June 4th, 1 p.m. in the Tactisphere. We'll have below this video a way for you to register for that. Make sure you get on there. It's going to be yourself and Michael Cox from Konica Minolta. Of course, Kevin and I probably helping to moderate as well. But I wanted to ask you, how do you think digital embellishment changes this profitability equation for printers and converters? And at the same time, a lot of people talk about sustainability as like it's been an environmental topic, but it's really a business imperative and a profitability thing, right? And that's kind of what we're going to get into. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Don't give everything away from the live, but give people a little bit of a taste of what we're going to talk about.
Well, you kind of touched on two topics. One is, the profitability, and then also the sustainability. And they do go hand in hand with digital embellishments, because digital embellishments brings a level of efficiency that can't be realized with analog printing, both on prior to press and then also while you're in production. So from a profitability standpoint, digital embellishments isn't just a digital version of what you could do in analog. In a number of ways, digital embellishments can exceed and has new capabilities that you can't even get in analog. The biggest obvious one is variable print, but even in types of details of embellishments that couldn't be achieved with analog. From a sustainability standpoint, it touches everything. It touches the make ready time, running time, waste associated with the make readies. And then also, if you're reducing all the time and waste, then you're also reducing the amount of power being used.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a very similar story to how digital print initially tracked, right? From the offset days to the digital days. Everything's faster, not as much make ready, not as much setup, not as much waste, all of that kind of thing. But I think also, and you mentioned something about. I think a lot of people may not even realize a lot of the things you can do with embellishment. You can do variability, right? We can now do variable foil effects, which is amazing. Imagine everybody's name in foil versus, and that's really hard to do if you're not doing it digitally because of the volume. And I think that's something that's super exciting, and we've seen that get bigger and bigger in the marketplace.
Touches into security elements, and security printing is very similar to sustainability. Everybody wants it until they realize how much it costs. With digital embellishments and digital variable print, you can bring security printing at a much lower level cost of entry.
Yeah, for sure. I think I actually said that in one of our prep calls that we were having. I said everybody's an environmentalist until they get the invoice, and then they're like,
exactly.
Yeah, never mind, right? But that's where the business case comes in, right? You can be an environmentalist and still not pay exorbitantly, right? Because it's more efficient. Let's talk a little bit about labels and packaging adoption, because I know this is like your wheelhouse. Labels and packaging seems like one of the strongest use cases for embellishment, because the print has to win attention so quickly. That shelf space, we talk a lot about it at Taktiful, shelf velocity, placement on the shelf. What are you seeing from brands and converters right now in that space?
We see all brands and all verticals adopting digital embellishments, but we see a couple that have just been explosive. One of them is the nutraceutical space, so like protein powders, creatines, things like that. We started with it about 5.5 years ago with a particular customer. Today it is, I'd like to say, even JetFX is ubiquitous in that space. We have over a dozen customers specifically focused on nutraceuticals in the US, and now I don't think there's a nutraceutical brand that is growing that doesn't have some type of digital embellishments that are on it. Then you can get into other areas, whether it's cosmetics or candle business. Cannabis is another big one that's
Cannabis is
all about,
huge.
you know,
Yeah.
that kind of shelf appeal or that visual presence.
So for those who might not be that familiar, I happen to take a nootropic every day. What is nutraceuticals? Like, what is that market?
Everything to do with vitamins, health, protein powders, you know, pre-workouts. So if you go into a GNC, so the GNC would kind of be the nutraceutical space.
Okay.
And today, everything in there is color and texture.
Yeah, yeah. So the ones I take are really interesting. They're gummies, and it's a company that actually just got bought out by a really big company. Now I'm just losing it all. But it's an interesting space because there's a lot of innovation. Everybody that's in these innovative space, I think Ed, you might agree, are looking to stand out, right? They're looking for that. How can we make our packages like, really shout at the customer? I went to a cannabis show one time. It was next to, the last embellishment show that we had in Chicago. There was a neighboring show that was for cannabis. And you go in there and man, you talk about embellishment, you talk about sexy print. They are just bringing it because everybody's trying to have their brand stand out. So I think, is it a combination of like the crowded spaces where you have to stand out? I know that there's a classic story of the toothpaste and this was not digital embellishment, but it was analog embellishment back in the day with toothpaste boxes. But now you go down an aisle, and if you don't have gold or silver on your toothpaste box, you're
Yeah.
not in the game, right?
I think it's also about scalability. And now we're all getting a little bit older, so we seem to forget. But 20 years ago, if a brand was trying to break into the market at really low quantities, they couldn't afford the hot stamping and the screen printing. So they had really basic labels and they had to kind of punch their way into the
Yeah.
market.
Yeah.
Today, what digital embellishments and digital print allows is whether you're small or mid-size, and now you're seeing even longer runs, you can come in with a very, high level, elevated type of packaging. So I think digital embellishments has really changed the market with that as well.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is the short run. That's really the digital embellishment sweet spot is the short run. And I think what we're seeing a lot too is you said the exact right thing. Like if you were a small brand back in the day, it was just hard to get in that space and get noticed. Now, I mean, we've seen like after post COVID, we've got like the Etsy economy, the Amazonification, everybody is kind of selling. There's tons. You look at any space, if you go research it, there's just a ton of small brands and there's people, makers at home that are wanting to have stuff and they can do it now because digital embellishment allows them to have short run packaging, allows them to have shorter run everything really. So I think it's an exciting time to be in this. But
Well,
you
if you're
guys,
in the space I'm sorry, again.
no, you're good. I was done.
I was going to mention that, we have a customer in one of those spaces that I mentioned, which is the nutraceutical ubiquitous. They 80% of their entire business, 80% of every single label that they run through their machines has digital embellishments on it. Last year, they did over 200 million labels that had digital embellishments. So we could talk about small runs. So small runs could be small runs per SKU, but not
Right.
necessarily in the aggregate.
Right. That's such a great point, right? That's such a great point. Because just because you're running digital and you're saying short run, that could mean those. Oh, that's such a great point. I got to highlight that. We're going to cut this out and make this a separate clip because I think people forget about that. You might be running a ton of short runs to make the aggregate larger. And like you said before, digital printing and digital embellishment is getting better and better at extending those runs. We're seeing this. We're going past that 5,000 mark, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of larger runs being
I don't know if you
being
want to,
involved.
you can cut this out too, but we have more than one customer. We have 3 customers that over 75% of all their business is digital embellishments, and they run 2 shifts a day, 5 and 6 days a week, and they're running millions and millions and millions of labels. And our workflow continues to evolve. So we have vision systems that others have as well. I think ours has an integration level that's really cool. That we have a customer that can put 10,000 records, basically 10,000 pieces of artwork, up into a cloud, and we can do pre-ripping right before it gets to the print
Hmm,
engine. So on the fly, we can literally print every single label as an individual SKU.
that's so. It's a brave new world, Ed. It's just so cool. But you guys talk a lot about embellishing print one drop at a time. For someone who doesn't live in the technical side of inkjet, what does that mean?
Well, inkjet. So again, the traditional embellishments, whether it's a screen printing or flexo or hot stamp, with the tooling, with the registration. So whenever you bring these analogs into it all together at one time, there's a lot of registration that you have to play around with. Remaking tools just to get everything to fit. With digital, because it is inkjet, it is piezo inkjet technology where you're literally putting droplets down.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's digital, there is no repeat. So if in printing, there's a step and a repeat, whether it's in sheet or in labels. In digital, there is no repeat. You may have a step and three across the web, but in the repeat, the digital, we register one image at a time. So the registration is much, much tighter than you would see that in analog printing.
Yeah, and a lot of that is just on the fly, right? Like it allows you to do kind of registration on the fly. It can just be
We do.
adjusted and like you said, camera technology today that's kind of watching everything happen and your workflow. It's just really, really cool. So you recently launched Fusion, an integrated digital embellishment system for label printing. What problem did that solve, and why is single pass embellishment such a big deal?
So, we entered the market as a retrofittable solution. And I think it was a strategy, but it was also a bit of luck because it it works in either a strong market or a weak market. In a weak market where companies aren't looking to spend new capital on all brand new printing presses, you can still invest in a JetFX and literally put them on a 13-year-old finishing machine and create more value. If the market's strong, you're buying new pieces of equipment, you put them on that. So we're retrofittable. But our original solo design, which we sell the most of, it has to be installed on a machine and it utilizes one of the curing stations in the machine. The Fusion is everything in one. So it doesn't matter where it's in the machine. It could be on the front end of the machine, the back end of the machine. It can even be after the rewind on the machine. And it has digital print engine, has a full unwind, a full rewind, and a full curing system. So it doesn't really matter where it's installed.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that retrofit. I'm glad you mentioned that because it was actually literally my next question. But how should a converter think about adding digital embellishment without disrupting a workflow that already works for them?
So to the point where if there's an existing asset and it's almost a no-brainer payback. We see customers that have paybacks in less than a year and a half, some less than a year, depending on how much they use it. If they're replacing screen,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of screen systems in analog that are already kind of almost look like a retrofit because they kind of sit up over top of the machine.
Mm-hmm.
You can replace that with the JetFX Solo, and it pays for itself without even getting into any other benefits of the foiling or anything else.
Wow.
So I think that's where it's one of the strong points of the retrofits.
Yeah. So I mean, it sounds like there's really just no worry about disrupting a workflow that already works. It's like take this out, put this on, and it just works.
Whether in labels or even in FlexPack, we've put them on a multitude of different brands of machines
Mm-hmm.
and different steps within the process. We've installed our systems in line with HP Indigo. We've installed them on various finishing lines, Flexo machines, and in the FlexPack world, we put them on slitters, pouching lines, and standalone systems.
Wow. So a lot of printers, we see this a lot, and part of the tactful mission is to kind of rid the industry of this, but a lot of printers buy new technology and then struggle to sell it. What do the most successful JetFX customers do differently when they bring embellishment to market?
Again, I think this was one thing that we thought of going in when I first started the company, but it's turned out to be an amazing foundational strength that JetFX has. We're printers. We weren't machine builders. So, my team and I, we've been in printing our whole life. So yes, we jumped the fence, but when people buy our technology, they're not buying necessarily the machine. The inkjet, there's other companies that make good inkjet print bars or systems. But once the customer gets it, now they have to figure out what to do with it. And because we're printers, it's not just we know our own print engine. We know coatings, laminates, inks, everything that's associated with digital embellishments. When you talk about foiling, it's very little to do with the machine, but to do with the nip pressure, the stripping angle, the pre-cure, the post-cure. and that's our forte.
That's awesome. So, what are the applications that you're most excited about right now? I mean, we've talked about a few, but I mean, there's a lot out there. It's like, spirit and wine labels, health and beauty, flexible packaging. Obviously, shrink sleeves are big. What's exciting you going forward, and maybe what's working now, and then what are you seeing as kind of an emergent thing that could be applied to digital embellishment?
So flexible packaging is massive right now. And the
Yeah.
reason it's massive is that you can go back 45, 50 years in labels and you can find embellishments. They happen to be hot
Mm-hmm.
stamp or
Mm-hmm.
flatbed screen or rotary screen, but the embellishments were there. So
Yep.
digital embellishments helps make them more efficient, more sustainable. But in flexible packaging, the definition of embellishments forever is a spot coating. And that spot coating was either done with a flexo plate or with a rear cylinder.
Mm-hmm.
Digital embellishments are bringing tactile effects and foiling effects and casting cure into pouches, and it just never existed before. So
Yeah,
it's
and that
open fire. Anybody that gets the technology, they start bringing it into the market, and they just blow up. We have we had a customer that bought invested in this technology for the cannabis industry, and a year in, one of the largest verticals, not just one customer, they had 6 customers, was beef jerky. I I I couldn't believe that beef jerky they took digital embellishments, but that's what digital embellishments is doing for FlexPack. I also
yeah.
see it in, it's going to continue to emerge in web to sheet folding cartons
Mm.
with the HP Indigo 200K. The 200K is now itself branching out beyond what it was originally focused on, which was flexible packaging, but it's now into labels, shrink, pouches. We know people are doing folded cartons. So I see digital embellishments and JetFX digital embellishments growing with that market.
Yeah, for sure. And we just saw, we did just see Scodex get into corrugated, like that. It's starting to branch out all over. So I mean, it sounds like there's two use cases, and this may be an obvious statement, but maybe worth saying. There's two use cases. Like if you're doing some kind of an embellishment that's analog, you can make it more efficient with digital. And if you're doing a printing process that doesn't have embellishment, you can add that to your mix, right? Because you said something very important, and we preach this. So am gonna stand on the pulpit now. Tactile effects are a strategic advantage because they tap into a psychology of the brain.
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
literally hack the brain into, and we're part of, we just launched something called the Digital Embellishment Manifesto. Hope you'll sign on if you haven't, and everybody
Yes.
listening should. digitalembellishmentmanifesto.com. And we're writing a book about it that we're launching at Printing United, but not to be too self-promotional. But the idea behind that is the power of print is tactile, and it always has been. And that's how we don't really need to compete with digital. We can just be who we are because we're basically tactile effects hack the brain. There's a behavioral economics, there's a psychology to it. We talk about it a lot. There's tons of studies. Literally the first sense that we develop in the womb is the sense of touch. Right? And and print is uniquely able to address the sense of touch, something that digital never will do and never can do. So I think it's an exciting time to be in this stuff. So
I agree.
as I previewed earlier, we do get into a little bit of a personal area here. I want to ask this last. It's an important one. When you're not working on digital embellishment, packaging innovation, what do you like? What do you like to do? Or alternately, as I gave you this option before when we prepped a little bit for the call, if you have a special skill, I want to know something that people don't know about you, Ed. If I don't get that out of you, it's not a successful episode.
Yeah. Well, as we talked about before, look, so my passion is, I don't really call it work. I don't. I love what I do. I've been fortunate, when I've been in the print industry for as long as I have, it was always international. So I've grown to absolutely love traveling. When I was
Mm.
in school, I hated history and I hated chemistry, and now I love both, but both because of working. So my wife and I, we love to travel. I travel many times around the world, and I love visiting different cultures, food. I'm not one of
Yeah.
those Americans that go and travel somewhere and then go to a McDonald's. So I like doing that, and I like staying, physically fit. So I like to exercise and get around.
Heck yeah. All right. So where's your favorite place that you've traveled?
Well, it depends on what what you're looking for in terms of whether it's beauty or whether it's people. We love Italy, Greece. The nicest people in the world are in Ireland. Crazy places like Morocco and Egypt. So they all have their uniqueness.
What place do you think has the best food?
Italy.
Italy for sure. I mean, Italy's kind of like Italy and Spain is hard to beat for like food and drink, man. It's just, whew, it's just really
Yeah,
really hard to
and
beat.
they haven't changed very much. If you go to Italy, if you're in the cities, I think they have a law that if you're a restaurant, you have to procure anything that's available within 25 miles, whether it's eggs or
Beautiful.
things or meat, you have to procure within that region.
Yeah,
So
so they're
it's
like
very
they're
there is no such thing as organic there, where you buy organic because everything is organic.
yeah, right, and it's like they're like farm to table. Duh.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
we've been doing that for forever and ever. Well, dude. That's just awesome. Well, Ed, we want to remind people June 4th in the Tactisphere. Find a way to register. Tactisphere.com is where you can go. If you're not a member yet, we really recommend that you do be. There's a lot of people that are both learning and teaching about digital embellishment in there. But we have a lot of live events. So the Tactisphere Live is going to host Profit is the New Green with Ed Wiegand of JetFX and also Michael Cox of Conca Minolta. I think I'm going to have him on the. Have I had my? I think I got to get Michael on the podcast too. Dang, I don't think I've had him on yet. But we
He's
we
very
look forward to
knowledgeable,
that.
a lot of
Yeah,
experience.
and just a great guy, right? Like we at Tactful, we really focus a lot on vibe, and he's got a great vibe, and as do you. And it's so great to have you on the podcast, and it's going to be great June 4th to have the live event, and look forward to talking to you more and learning more, and yeah, it was great to have you on Tactful Tuesdays, man. Thanks for the time.
Well, Eric, thank you, and I look forward to the fourth coming up.
Awesome, man. Thanks a lot.